Please like my videos, please subscribe to my channel, and please press the bell icon so that you get to know when my latest video has come. And to learn more and to find a video relevant to you, please do check out my videos list.
Hello, Namaskar, Amava to all my friends from your friend astrologer and guide Irfan, once more with you from my very own channel, Astro Assurance. Today I want to throw some more light on the aspect of or the situation of Raj Yogas and how Raj Yogas can sometimes turn into not so good giving yogas, and in fact they may become even damaging if there are placements in the horoscope which are contrary to what the Raj Yoga should give us. In fact, a simple Raj Yoga, even without many challenges to the Raj Yoga by virtue of conjunctions or aspects or even eclipses, may throw tough challenges at us, and yet we may be assuming that the Raj Yoga is a strong Raj Yoga, and we are not able to deep down look enough deeply to be able to fathom whether the Raj Yoga is truly a strong Raj Yoga and whether it is placed in such a manner that it can give us fantastic results. So let us look into some conditions where a Raj Yoga may sometimes give us effects or situations or results which are contrary to our expectations. Now, to start with, all Raj Yogas are not completely unblemished by themselves. Raj Yogas are supposed to give you good results in a certain context, in a certain area, in a certain situation, in a certain time frame and a certain period of your life, and hence Raj Yogas, while existent in the natal horoscope, are not active or activated throughout our lives. They get activated from time to time, especially during the dasha or antardasha of the planets involved, or when important transits also happen. And the stronger the transit and the transit of benefics, and during the dasha and antardasha of the planets involved, then we can also get better results. So what are the instances where, in spite of good Raj Yogas in a horoscope, sometimes they are giving us challenging results while we are assuming that the Raj Yoga is a good one and it should give us good results. So let's deep dive into and understand those situations, those areas where a Raj Yoga may give us more challenging results. Let us start with the Panch Mahapurush Yogas. The Panch Mahapurush Yogas are supposed to be fantastic yogas, and these are formed by the important planets, which is Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter and Saturn. Luminaries don't make the Panch Mahapurush Yoga, which means Sun and Moon are not involved, neither are the nodes Rahu or Ketu involved. So here Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Mars and Saturn are involved. Now each one of them gives a strong Raj Yoga, especially in the Kendra, in their own sign or the sign of their exaltation. So where can a strong Mahapurush Yoga give us challenging results? Say for example a Panch Mahapurush Yoga like a Rochak Mahapurush Yoga, where you have, say, Mars in the sign of Scorpio but for a Taurus ascendant native. So here, because of Mars getting involved in the sign of Taurus in the Kendra, which is the 7th house, on paper it is a Rochak Mahapurush Yoga. However, when you look deeper, it is in the sign of Scorpio, that too in the 7th house, and Mars is an extremely poor malefic or not such a good giving results malefic in the 7th house, in the Grihasthana, and so this is a strong cause for trouble in the domestic area, trouble also in partnerships. So wherever Mars gets involved in these two houses, which is the 4th house and the 7th house, even in the Mahapurush Yoga, it is cause for trouble. It can either form a strong Mangal dosha, while it is a Mangalic position, especially if it's in the 4th house as well as in the 7th house, but it may be a weak Mangalic dosha, but it can be a strong Mangal dosha where Mars is becoming a strong affliction, especially when Mars gets into a debilitation sign in these, or even in combustion, but more so when Mars also gets into an exaltation sign or in a Rochak Mahapurush Yoga, especially in the 4th house, where in its natural house of Cancer Mars gets debilitated. So Mars in the 4th and the 7th house, even in a Rochak Mahapurush Yoga, is a challenging yoga and may not give you good results. On the other hand, Saturn, when it gets into the Lagna or the 4th house, even in a Sasha Mahapurush Yoga, may give you challenging results. This is more so when Saturn gets into the Lagna, where it loses a lot of its directional strength, and in Aquarius, because here Saturn also rules the 12th house. So the 12th lord getting even in its own sign in the Lagna is a challenging part. The other is when Saturn gets into the Aquarius sign in the 4th house, where the 3rd house is also ruled by Saturn, and so the 3rd lord going into the 4th house also. So this can also bring challenges. It can put you into requiring more effort to acquire stability in the house. And the third about Sasha Mahapurush Yoga is where for a Cancer ascendant native, Saturn gets into a Sasha Mahapurush Yoga in the 7th house in Capricorn. Here the 8th house is its Mool Trikona sign. So 8th lord getting into the 7th house, and though Saturn has a lot of directional strength also, but it does give challenges also, because Saturn is also a malefic for Cancer ascendant native. So in spite of having a Sasha Mahapurush Yoga, it can still give you challenges, it can still give you issues. Then the Bhadra Mahapurush Yoga, where Mercury gets exalted or placed in its own sign in Virgo, is also a strong placement. However, if Mercury gets into a Bhadra Mahapurush Yoga, for example in Gemini in the 4th house, then it can become a problem, because here the Lagna is ruled by Pisces, by Jupiter, and Mercury also rules the 7th house. So the 7th lord getting into the 4th house in the Gemini sign, where Mercury in the 4th house in Gemini can cause challenges in miscommunication or challenges or misunderstandings also with the in a domestic environment and in the domestic house or in the domestic household, and can create issues in the Grihasthana or in the domestic life. So one has to be more careful with such a placement. This can also be when Mercury gets even in Virgo for a Gemini ascendant native, because here Mercury is of the Lagna lord. So Mercury in the 4th house is definitely not a great placement, because it can makes you more analytical in a domestic environment. In a domestic environment, we need to be less analytical, less trying to analyze things, less becoming more pointed and having a magnifying glass to look at things. In the domestic household, we need to be more open-minded. We need to give more space to people in the household. So the Bhadra Yoga in either in the Lagna or in the 4th house can also be a challenge with Mercury getting involved. Then similarly, the Hansa Yoga for a Gemini ascendant native, where Jupiter rules the 7th house, also the 10th house, and now Jupiter gets into the 10th house in the Pisces sign. So here the 12th house characteristics also play a part, and Pisces is the watery sign. So here sometimes the person becomes too idealistic also and too giving also, in spite of being in the Hansa Yoga, yet the person can be too giving, too wise, and can sometimes be at the receiving end, especially in today's time where higher wisdom or more giving nature can result in more losses. So the Hansa Yoga with Jupiter in the 10th house for a Gemini ascendant native can also create more challenges and issues at work rather than being more helpful. Then the Malavya Yoga, especially with Venus in the Taurus sign and Venus placed in the Lagna. Here the Malavya Yoga is a strong yoga, because Venus can also give you a lot of materialistic fervor, materialistic leanings to the person, and make you more steadfast in wanting to earn money and also chase one's finances. The challenge is that the 6th house is ruled by the Mool Trikona sign Libra, and so the 6th house elements also get involved. Person has to work harder and has to face a lot of competition, and keeping the relationship intact while chasing materialism becomes a challenge. So while it can give you good money making, can give you good looks also, but such a person faces a lot of competition, and many times the relationships become something where one has to sacrifice more to attain the financial part. So this can also become a tough placement or tough challenge in spite of being a good strong Malavya Yoga. Then a strong yoga like a Gajakesari Yoga, one of the best yogas that one can have, and a strong yoga for all round development, prosperity, and a great life. Blessed people can have this yoga in a strong placement. However, the Gachakesari yoga is a pretty common yoga because Moon and Jupiter coming into each other's aspect, or being in Kendra to each other, or being in conjunction. So it is a pretty common yoga. But why are a lot of people who have the Gachakesari yoga, their lives are not fantastic? The reason being is sometimes the placement of the Gachakesari yoga can be not in such a fantastic placement. For example, again for a Gemini ascendant native, the Gachakesari yoga happening in the 8th house in the sign of Capricorn, where Jupiter gets debilitated and Moon is not so strong in the sign of Capricorn, and in the 8th house, where in the natural sign of the 8th house in Scorpio, Moon gets debilitated. So this can create a lot of challenges. Secondly, for an Aries ascendant native, where the Gachakesari yoga is again in the 8th house, and now it is in Scorpio where Moon gets debilitated, and Jupiter, whose Mool Trikona sign is the 9th house, gets placed in the 8th house, 12th to itself in a Gachakesari yoga, and with a debilitated Moon. So this can give more challenges and issues in life, more turbulations, more ups and downs, and one has to use all their strength to be able to face those challenges. So not such a great yoga for an Aries ascendant native where Moon and Jupiter are together in the 8th house in Scorpio. And many such placements of Gachakesari yoga can be more challenge giving rather than giving you better results also. So one has to be very careful, especially when one reads both the Raja Yogas and the Dhan Yogas. And the next one is the Neech Bhang Raj Yoga. Now Neech Bhang Raj Yoga is a placement of planets, getting debilitated, and the debilitation getting cancelled because of aspect of the planet which rules that particular sign and house, or even in conjunction to that particular planet. Say for example a strong Neech Bhang with Mars in Cancer for an Aries ascendant native, Mars in Cancer in the 4th house and Jupiter in Capricorn in the 10th house. Now Mars and Jupiter are aspecting each other. Jupiter gets exalted in Cancer, so Jupiter's aspect on Mars, the debilitated Mars in Cancer, means Mars is under Neech Bhang, where on the other hand Mars gets exalted in Capricorn and Jupiter is placed there, and Mars is aspecting the Capricorn sign from the 4th house. So both are cancelling each other out. Yet the challenges of this Neech Bhang is Mars is in a Mangalic position in the domestic environment, in the Grihasthana. So definitely challenges, argument, issues at home will also happen. Sometimes not so great decisions taken about real estate or conveniences or how one buys, and can also lose a lot of losses in your money. Appliances constantly break down, issues at home can also happen, and career may not take off very well, and person has to work extra hard in being able to turn the career around. And because Mars is in the 4th house, here most of the focus goes in trying to keep or resolve issues in the Grihasthana at home, and so the focus is less at work, and the person doesn't have enough wisdom because of Jupiter getting debilitated to be able to handle issues and challenges at work. So here both the domestic environment is affected as well as the career or the work environment is affected, and in spite on paper the Neech Bhang happening, yet challenges both can be seen in the domestic environment as well as in the career. So not such a great Neech Bhang Raj Yoga, and hence sometimes we need to be very careful how we read the Neech Bhang Raj Yoga, because many times with the Neech Bhang Raj Yoga 60% or 70% of the time trouble is surely there. We get relief only maybe 20 to 30% of the time, and very good benefits get involved, maybe to 40% relief we get, but 60 to 80% in that range we still do face challenges in spite of being a Neech Bhang Raj Yoga. So one has to be very careful how one reads into a Neech Bhang Raj Yoga. This is more of a malefic yoga rather than a actual Raj Yoga. Now the favorite yoga with a lot of people call the Parivartana Yoga. So when people look into the horoscopes and they see a Parivartana between planets, then they think, oh, Parivartana Raj Yoga, it must be a great yoga for me. It is like this, a person who's drowning is clutching at straws, and so many times we misread a Parivartana Yoga, and a Parivartana Yoga can also be very damaging if the Parivartana happens in damage inducing houses. For example, for a Pisces ascendant native, the 7th house sign is Virgo, because the ascendant is Pisces. So the 7th house sign is Virgo, then the 6th house sign is Leo, and the 8th house sign is Libra. So if Sun, which rules the 6th house of Leo, gets into the 8th house in the Libra sign, where it gets debilitated, and Venus, which rules the 8th house because of it being the Libra sign, and it is also the Mool Trikona sign of Venus, if Venus gets into the Leo sign in the 6th house, so this is a Parivartana happening between Sun and Venus. However, Sun is getting debilitated, and that too in the 8th house in Libra, whereas Venus has got into Leo sign, which is a malefic sign for Venus, and in the 6th house. In the natural 6th sign Virgo, Venus gets debilitated. So this is a very, very tough Parivartana Yoga, where in spite of exchanging signs, in spite of exchanging houses, that too the Mool Trikona houses, yet more challenging results will come, both from competition at work and sudden issues, obstacles, challenges coming in even from government authorities. So a tough Parivartana Yoga. One has to understand the Raj Yoga well before jumping to conclusion. So any Raj Yoga you have, don't jump to conclusion that it is a great yoga. Look deeply into it. Use some of the effects I have already given you, some of the analysis points I have already given you in other Raj Yoga videos of mine. In fact, I have got a playlist on yogas and doshas. Please do look into it to understand various yogas and doshas, and also how to look deeply into how strong or weak a Raj Yoga is and whether it will give us good results or not. And now, in spite of, we have just seen the Parivartana Yoga where it can be a big challenge also. And now moving forward, and just now that we saw the Parivartana Yoga between Sun and Venus, Sun going into the 8th house and Libra, and Venus going into the 5th house and Leo. This is also a good Viparit Raj Yoga. What is a Viparit Raj Yoga? Viparit Raj Yoga is where a 6th, 8th or 12th sign lord, a house lord, goes into any of the other houses. Then it becomes a Viparit Raj Yoga. So here the 6th lord Sun is going into the 8th house, and 8th lord Venus is going into the 6th house. So this is also the Viparit Raj Yoga. Yet in spite of that, the challenges are strong in spite of the Viparit Raj Yoga happening, because here the 6th and 8th house are getting involved. These are very, very malefic houses, and Sun is a very, very malefic planet and going into a debilitation sign, and Venus is also a challenging placement in the 6th house because it also gets naturally debilitated in the 6th sign of Virgo. And that too for a Pisces ascendant native, Venus is not a great Yoga Karaka planet. So this is a tough placement, whether you look at it as a Parivartana Yoga or as a Viparit Raj Yoga. This is a challenging and tough Viparit Raj Yoga or a Parivartana Yoga. And now one of the most misunderstood yogas, this is the Chandra Mangal Yoga between Moon and Mars. While on paper again Moon and Mars are of the Deva clan, they are friendly, in the friendly bracket, or they are friendly to each other. However, we know that Mars gets debilitated in the sign of Cancer. So it's a tough placement for Mars when it gets into the Cancer sign. On the other hand, Moon getting into Scorpio is also a debilitation sign for Moon. So when these two come together, those opposing energies of emotionality and being more focused on emotional part, whereas Mars is not so emotional. Mars does not care about emotions, and that's why Mars gets debilitated in Cancer sign, which is the sign of emotions. Mars needs to be, or wants to be, cruel, and it's in nature of Mars to be cruel and go and get its goal at any cost. So Mars is not very comfortable with the Moon, because here a lot of aggression comes into the emotions. So a lot of breakdowns, desperation, anxiety may also can come about with this. While on paper it's a good yoga which also gives you very lot of sharpness of mind, go-getting spirit, but it can either make somebody very, very cold-blooded also, or too aggressive for their liking also. So many very destructive houses, destructive forces also come into the play, especially at an emotional level. This is a very, very challenging yoga, and this is a greater challenging yoga rather than a strong Raj Yoga. So in most of the houses, Chandra Mangal Yoga is not a great yoga to have. So better to look and to analyze the Chandra Mangal Yoga better, more carefully, rather than jumping to conclusion that it is the Raj Yoga. So it's a great yoga for me. It will give me great results. Then the yogas which are supposed to be good yogas, like the Sunafa Yoga, the Anafa Yoga, or the Dhurdura Yoga. Now, Sunafa Yoga is formed when planets get placed second from the moon, especially if benefics are second from the moon, then it's a great placement as it is seen. Similarly, the Anafa Yoga, where you have planets in the 12th house from the moon. If it's a benefic, even a better placement also. However, if for certain ascendants, for example, for a Cancer ascendant natives, if Venus goes into the 12th house in Gemini sign as a Anafa placement, then while the yoga is strong, but Venus does not give great results in the 12th house in Gemini sign, because here Venus is a malefic for Cancer ascendant natives. So here the challenges in terms of expenses are very, very high. The person is not able to control the expenses. So sometimes in spite of making money, the person is not able to keep a tab on their purses, and so it's a more wasteful Raj Yoga than a gainful. So while money may be attracted, but there may be also more expenses, and because of the high expenses, losses may come about. So this is a challenging yoga to have the Anafa Yoga in the 12th house with the planet placed 12 from the moon, especially with moon goes into the Cancer sign in the Lagna. Then the Sunafa Yoga, if planets get placed second house from moon, it is seen as a good yoga, the Sunafa Yoga, which is a gain making yoga. However, if moon itself is, say for example, in Scorpio sign in the 8th house, or in any sign in the 8th house, or even if a benefic goes into the second house from moon, which is in the 9th house, so here some planetary placements can give you good results. However, because moon itself is in a tough placement, so if a benefic like Mercury goes into Sagittarius sign, for example, into the 9th house, Mercury doesn't do very, very well, not being very friendly with Jupiter, and hence it is a more challenging placement for Mercury in the 9th house, while moon is placed in the 8th house in Scorpio. So some of these yogas with the Sunafa Yoga or Anafa Yoga have to be carefully seen and understand and analyzed, rather than jumping to conclusions thinking that they are more auspicious yogas. Similarly, the Dhurdura Yoga with planets placed on either side of moon. However, the Dhurdura Yoga can quickly get converted into a Papkatri if there are malefics placed on either side. Even if there are benefics placed on either side of the moon, however, for example, if moon gets placed in the Scorpio sign where Mercury is in the Libra sign, one house from the moon, and Venus goes into the next sign from moon, which goes into the Sagittarius sign, then too it is a challenging placement, because Mercury doesn't do so very well in Sagittarius, because Mercury doesn't do very well in Libra, and Venus doesn't do very well in Sagittarius. So then the very popular Vasumati Yoga, where if benefics go into the Upachaya houses from the Lagna, for example in the 3rd house, 6th house, 10th house and the 11th house, then it's supposed to be a very strong Vasumati Yoga and an auspicious results bringing yoga. And if it is benefics get placed from the Lagna, then your moon can also be involved, because the Vasumati Yoga is where from either the Lagna or from moon benefics gets placed in the 3rd, 6th, 10th and the 11th house. In the Upachaya houses either from the Lagna or the moon. Now from the Lagna, if moon goes into the 3rd house, for example for a Leo ascendant native, moon goes into the 3rd house in Libra, which means in matters of relation, person has to make a lot of efforts to get better results, because the 3rd house is the house of effort, and in the sign of Libra, which is related to relationships. So moon going into the 3rd house means more effort is required to get more emotional benefit in relationship. And then in the 6th house is the sign of Capricorn. If Jupiter goes into the 6th house in Capricorn, then wisdom can be failing, in competition you may be failing, prosperity may be in a challenging environment. And then Mercury going into the 10th house in Taurus. So this is more of a money making placement. However, this is also related to the 11th Lord getting into the 10th house, which means 12th from itself, because 11th house is also ruled by Mercury and the 2nd house is also ruled by Mercury. So the 2nd house, a Maraka placement, because Leo ascendant Mercury is a malefic planet, and now getting placed in the 10th house in Taurus. So here a person has to struggle a lot to be able to earn money through analytical decisions at work. whereas a Venus goes into the 11th house in the sign of Gemini in Mercury's sign. So Venus also doesn't do too very well in the Gemini sign in the 11th house, especially because Venus here rules the 3rd house of effort. So from a societal connection, from social connections, to be able to get better results, one has to put in extra effort. And in your career also, one has to put in extra effort before one gets good results. So in spite of having a great Vasumati yoga, each of the planets can be in tough placements, spoiling the overall results, in fact spoiling all the benefit results, and so if you have a strong Vasumati yoga, yet their placement challenging placements, so don't read too much into it, but delve deeper to understand the yoga better and to fathom how it's going to play out. Apart from these placement wise, if planets get placed in a strong Raj Yoga but under tough conjunctions with malefics or with those planets which the dosha also is created, then the yoga is spoiled and the dosha comes into effect. For example, Saturn placed in a very, very strong Sasha Yoga for a Leo ascendant native, where Saturn gets more directional strength in the 7th house in Aquarius, but your moon gets placed along with Saturn. So the Vish dosha is formed and the Sasha Yoga is completely spoiled. So conjunctions also can to a severe result, can also give severe results rather than good results, especially because a dosha overlaps or overtakes the Raj Yoga. Then there are aspects. In spite of very strong placements, if one or two malefics get involved by aspecting the particular Raj Yoga, then they may completely take away the auspicious nature of the yoga. For if both Rahu and Mars, both of them aspect either a Malavya Yoga or a Bhadra Yoga or even a Hamsa Yoga, then there can be a lot of more challenging results because two malefics are aspecting, or a Rahu or Saturn aspecting either a Mercury or a Venus or a Jupiter, even in their Mahapurush yogas, then two challenging results can come more often than good results, auspicious results. So challenging aspects, malefic aspects may also spoil a Raj Yoga and give more contrary results rather than good results. And then eclipses with Rahu or Ketu, here the planets, the nodes completely take over the energy of even strong benefics, and completely all auspicious results are controlled by these malefic planets, and so the person has to struggle a lot before either Rahu or Ketu will allow you good results, and sometimes it comes very late in life, much after the maturity period of Rahu and Ketu, and so it is too little too late coming in, especially when benefics even in the Raj Yoga getting eclipsed by either Rahu or Ketu. Especially, for example, if moon gets exalted in Taurus but it is placed with Rahu or with Ketu, so here the mind is completely not into your control and it is all over the place, especially with Rahu, and take you in different tangents and different areas of life, making you, misleading you into taking seemingly good decisions where you may falter and you may make wrong choices. So one has to be careful with malefics. And then combustions, when the good Raj Yoga is combusted, Raj Yoga inducing planet is combusted by the sun. So as an example, moon getting exalted in Taurus but being within 1 degree of sun, so completely combusted, or Jupiter getting into a Hamsa Yoga but again being combusted by the sun, so all the wisdom is lost to more arrogance where sun takes over. Or the Malavya Yoga being formed with Venus in Pisces, yet under combustion of the sun, so your extra expenses may happen and the person may not be able to control the purse strings, overly spending and not being able to control your passion for materialistic things, and be misled into acquiring things more because of the prestige involved with sun involved and not being able to control expenses. So this can be a more tougher malefic inducing yoga rather than a good yoga, especially when the combustion happens of the respective planet which is involved in the Raj Yoga. Then when a planet loses a lot of its Ashtak Varga points and we are not able to look into or see that side, so on paper there is a Raj Yoga present, but the Ashtak Varga points of the planet are very, very less, so the planet is not able to give you auspicious results, and you may be banking on the planet's Dasha or Antardasha to give you Raj Yoga kind of results, but they never come. And then there are the negative Argalas. I've done a video on Argalas, how Argalas are the influencing placements of planets, There can be positive influences as well as negative influences. So sometimes the entire Raj Yoga may be spoiled by a negative Argala inducing planet. So one has to carefully look at whether Raj Yoga is being spoiled by Argala or a negative influence to the Raj Yoga. And then if a dosha like a Kalp Sarp dosha happening, you may have all the best yogas, yet if a Kalp Sarp dosha happens where Rahu and Ketu have all the planets on one side of the axis and no planets on the other side, so in spite of great yogas, it may still be more challenging placement, especially if the Kalp Sarp yoga is with all the planets on the domestic side of Rahu and Ketu, which means if Rahu and Ketu are, say for example, in the Lagna and all the planets are between 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th houses, then there can be more challenging results, especially in the domestic environment, and to be able to get more material benefits. So the Kalp Sarp yoga may also spoil all results of the Raj yogas and can give you, in fact, more challenges than the Raj yogas can be able to give you. And last but not the least, the most important thing which can completely spoil all the Raj yogas in your horoscope. I have done a video on this where how all the yogas can be spoiled in your horoscope, and please go and see that because that gives more detail about this. But in a nutshell, if your attitude is always focused on yourself, you're always chasing materialism, and you are ready to cut the ethical corners to be able to make money, you don't look at people who are lower down than you don't pity people, you're not able to empathize with people, you go contrary to relations, you don't focus on relations, you're only chasing materialism and money, then with your attitude of not looking at anything and beyond yourself and being selfish and greedy and self-centered, you may spoil all the yogas in your horoscope. All the auspicious yogas may go away, and you may be misled by one Raj yoga which may give you power and through that a lot of results, but the last part of your life may be led with a very huge burden on your conscience, your relations all going away from you, and you may be left with nothing towards the end of the life. And there can also be a big downfall which comes in your life without you realizing, and you being sucked into it. So be very, very careful where your attitude spoils all the Raj yogas in the horoscope rather than a bad placement or a bad eclipse or a bad conjunction or a bad aspect. So friend, this is in a nutshell where seemingly on paper a lot of Raj yogas can get spoiled because of placement, aspects, conjunctions, and last but not the least through attitude. So be more careful how you do your analysis of your Raj yogas. So don't be misled by somebody else telling you have great yogas here, great yogas there, and you will get this result and that result, or you do this puja or you wear this gemstone and you will get better results. So be more wary of such instances where you may be misled or you're misleading into a Raj yoga, and it's better where Raj yogas are concerned, discretion is the better part of Veda. So friends, like this video, share this video, and if you're looking for a personal consultation from me, please reach out to me at the links given below. Till some other time with some other video, this is your friend astrologer and guide Irfan signing off. Ciao.